He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades.
William and Catherine's first outing as King and Queen was going exactly as planned, until something shocking happened that changed everything. King Charles's health had begun to fail quietly but steadily.
We've received breaking news from Buckingham Palace, which has announced that the King has been diagnosed with cancer.
The long hours, the constant travel, and the pressures of kingship had taken a toll with his recent battle with cancer. Because of this, his doctors urged rest, but slowing down felt impossible for a man who had waited his whole life to serve. One calm evening at Sandringham, his sister, Princess Anne, came to see him. The house was quiet, the fire crackling softly as twilight settled in. She found him sitting alone, reading state papers by the dim light of a lamp. "Charles," she began gently, taking the seat beside him, "I heard the doctor's report, and I must confess you've carried this crown with grace. But it's time to think about what comes next." He sighed, folding his papers. "If I step back now, it will feel like failure," he said quietly. At that moment, Anne said something that changed history. "Keep watching for more." Anne shook her head. "Stepping down is not a sign of failure, but a sign of foresight. You've guided Britain through change. Now it's time to pass the weight before it breaks you. Let William and Catherine take it on, while you can still guide them." The king was silent for a moment, his gaze lost in the flames. Finally, he nodded. "Perhaps you're right," he whispered. "They are ready. The country already sees them that way." 3 days later, he summoned his son and daughter-in-law to Sandringham. The autumn sun streamed through the windows of his study as they entered. "My dear ones," the king began, "the doctors tell me I must rest. The daily duties of the crown must pass on, not because I wish it, but because it is right. I want you to carry them forward together." William hesitated. "Father, we'll do whatever is needed, but we never wanted you to feel replaced." Charles smiled faintly. "You won't replace me. You'll continue me. The monarchy isn't one life, it's a legacy." Catherine reached forward, her tone warm and steady. "Then we'll serve with the same devotion you've shown, Your Majesty, first as family and as duty." The king took her hand gently. "Then I know Britain is in good hands." And just like that, the decision was made. 2 days later, the news spread through every corner of the kingdom. The palace released a statement confirming that King Charles III, who is now under medical advice, had transferred day-to-day royal duties to the Prince and Princess of Wales. The statement described it as an act of continuity guided by wisdom and faith. Across the country, church bells rang, flags were raised, and messages of support poured in from around the Commonwealth. Preparations began immediately for a formal blessing, a symbolic event at Westminster Abbey, followed by a public appearance at Windsor. It would not be a coronation, but a moment of renewal, the recognition of a shared reign. On the day of the blessing, the abbey was filled with light and silence. Senior royals, clergy, and state leaders gathered beneath the great vaulted arches where King Charles had been crowned 2 years earlier. The Archbishop of Canterbury led the service, his voice steady and full of meaning. "As this crown passes through hands of service," he said, "may it rest upon hearts of duty." The words echoed through the ancient space, carrying both solemnity and hope. Then came the moment that history would remember. Princess Anne stepped forward with calm grace, holding the newly commissioned Queen Consort's crown, crafted by Gerard and companies the royal jeweler since 1735. Princess Anne stepped forward and presented the crown to Catherine. It was a simple, graceful exchange, a moment of quiet history. The palace later explained that 2 crowns had been made. The main state crown, kept in the Tower of London, and a lighter version for blessings and ceremonies. Catherine wore the lighter crown briefly as she knelt before the Archbishop, calm and composed. When she rose, the abbey bells rang out, filling the air with solemn joy. She wasn't just receiving a crown, one observer said softly. She was accepting a nation's trust. A few hours after Catherine and William were blessed at Westminster Abbey, they arrived at Windsor Castle for their first walkabout as the future king and queen. Crowds gathered early along the long walk. People waved flags and held flowers. There was excitement, but it was calm and respectful. Many said they had come to show support for the couple as they began their new roles. William and Catherine walked, side by side, smiling and shaking hands. William looked relaxed and focused, stopping often to speak with people in the crowd. Catherine, wearing a simple gray coat, accepted flowers and chatted with children. Her calm manner and easy smile drew warm reactions from those who met her. At one point, an elderly man stepped forward and said, "God bless the new queen." Catherine smiled and replied quietly with a nod. Then he continued, "God bless the king." The short exchange was gentle but meaningful. Everything felt peaceful until something happened that changed everything. Curious to find out what happened next? Stay tuned. Near the center of the crowd stood Jane, a mother from Reading, holding the hand of her 8-year-old daughter, Rose. The little girl was clutching a bunch of daisies tied with blue ribbon. "When they come closer, I'll give her my flowers," Rose said, her eyes fixed on Catherine. Jane smiled and brushed a loose curl from her daughter's face. "We'll wait till it's our turn, love. Just hold my hand tight." But as the couple drew nearer, the crowd's energy changed. People leaned forward, eager for a better view. Voices grew louder. Flags waved in the air. Rose's small hand slipped from her mother's. "Mom, she's right there," she shouted, and before Jane could react, Rose moved forward into the crowd. "Rose! Wait!" Jane cried, pushing through the people in front of her. But the line was tight, and few noticed the small figure moving ahead. Rose squeezed between two adults and reached the front barrier, her flowers still in hand. Catherine was only a few steps away now, smiling and shaking hands. William followed, greeting a group of school children. Jane's heart raced. "Rose! Stop! Come back!" she shouted again. The cheering was too loud. Catherine's voice could be heard thanking a woman for her flowers, while security staff tried to keep the crowd steady. But the excitement was growing as William and Catherine came closer, causing more people to press forward. At that moment, a guard called out for everyone to step back, but only a few heard. Then, in a single moment, it happened. The front row shifted as someone stumbled. Others pushed forward without meaning to. The pressure spread quickly through the line. Jane felt herself pulled by the movement, struggling to keep her balance. "Stop pushing!" someone shouted. Another voice yelled, "A child's there!" "Careful." Catherine turned her head, her smile fading. William lifted a hand to signal the guards. But the noise, the movement, and everything going on was already too much. Rose, who had been standing by the barrier, lost her footing as the people behind her surged forward. The daisies slipped from her hands. She looked back toward her mother, eyes wide. Then she fell. Jane screamed and dropped to her knees, pushing through the legs around her. "Rose! Rose!" she cried. Security officers rushed in. A few people near the front tried to pull back, creating space. The crowd went from cheering to silence in seconds. William stepped forward quickly, speaking to one of the guards. Catherine stood still, her hand over her mouth, eyes fixed on the ground ahead. Medics appeared within moments. Jane reached her daughter first, brushing dirt from her face, whispering her name. Rose didn't answer. Catherine took a step closer but stopped as the security team formed a small circle around the scene. The sound of bells from the castle carried faintly over the crowd, bright, distant, and heartbreakingly out of place. Rose was lifted gently onto a stretcher and taken toward a waiting ambulance. The crowd stood frozen. Flags lowered. Phones stopped recording. Jane followed beside her daughter, holding the small bunch of daisies that had fallen to the ground. For the first time that day, Windsor was silent. What had begun as a celebration of renewal had become something else, a reminder of how quickly joy can turn to fear. And as Catherine and William stood together, hands clasped tightly, the moment that was meant to mark the start of their new chapter had changed everything. But that was not all. As soon as the ambulance drove off, the crowd began to break apart. Some people were crying, others stood still, not sure what to do. A few tried to comfort Jane's husband, who had been standing farther back. Police and guards asked everyone to move slowly and stay calm. The excitement from earlier was gone. People looked worried and confused. William stood quietly, watching the ambulance lights fade down the road. Catherine stood beside him, her face pale. After a few seconds, William leaned toward his aide and said quietly, "We'll go too." The aide nodded and spoke quickly into his radio. A black car pulled up nearby. William guided Catherine toward it. The crowd moved aside, silent now. No one cheered or waved. They just watched as the couple got into the car. A woman in the crowd whispered, "They're following the ambulance." The car left a moment later, heading in the same direction as the ambulance. The crowd slowly began to leave. People spoke in low voices, many still shaken by what they had seen. The long walk, which had been full of sound and color earlier, was now quiet. The drive from Windsor Castle to Frimley Park Hospital took just under 20 minutes. The royal car followed the ambulance the entire way, escorted by 2 police motorcycles that cleared the road ahead. Inside, William and Catherine sat in silence. Catherine's hands were tightly clasped in her lap. William kept glancing toward the flashing blue lights ahead. When they arrived, the ambulance had already pulled into the emergency bay. Paramedics were rushing Rose inside on a stretcher. Her mother, Jane, was right beside her, pale, frightened, and still clutching her daughter's small hand. Security officers had sealed off the main entrance to control the growing crowd outside. Several members of the hospital staff stood at the doorway, waiting to receive the couple. The air was cool and tense, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing across the tiled floor. By the time William and Catherine stepped inside, Rose had already been taken to the emergency room. The couple was met by Nurse Amelia Hayes, who led them quietly down the corridor. "The little girl is being seen by Dr. Clark, our lead consultant," she explained. "Her mother is just outside the ward." They turned the corner and saw Jane pacing up and down the hall, her arms folded tightly around herself. When she looked up and saw them, she froze. Her mouth opened slightly, as if she wanted to speak. But no words came. Catherine approached her first, gently touching her arm. "Please don't get up," she said softly, realizing how dazed the woman looked. "We came as soon as we could. How is she?" Jane's voice shook. "They said she's being checked." She hit her head when she fell, and there was blood. Her words caught in her throat. Catherine guided her to a nearby chair. "She's in the best hands," she said calmly. "You did everything right." William remained standing close by, his tone quiet and steady. "It must have been terrifying," he said. Jane nodded, trying to control her tears. "It was. She just slipped away from me. I saw her running and then people pushed forward, and I couldn't reach her." Catherine handed her a tissue from the small pack she carried. "You don't have to explain," she said kindly. Children do that. They get excited, especially at moments like these. Jane wiped her face. She only wanted to give you her flowers. I know, Catherine said, smiling faintly. They were beautiful. For a while, the hallway was silent except for the muffled sounds of voices behind the emergency doors. A clock on the wall ticked steadily. Outside, the faint hum of the crowd still lingered beyond the barriers. About 45 minutes passed before Dr. Stephen Clark, the hospital's lead emergency consultant, came out through the swinging doors. His white coat was slightly wrinkled, his expression calm. He gave a polite nod. "Your Royal Highnesses, Mrs. Bennet, thank you for waiting. Rose is stable. She's had a mild concussion and a few bruises, but no fractures or serious injuries. We're keeping her for observation overnight, just to be safe." Jane let out a long breath and pressed her hands to her face. "Thank God," she whispered. Catherine stood, her relief visible. "Can we see her?" "Of course," Dr. Clark said. "She's awake now, a bit tired, but she's asking for her mum." He led them through the corridor into a small recovery room. Rose was lying in bed, a bandage on her forehead, an oxygen clip on her finger. She looked small and pale under the bright hospital light, but her eyes fluttered open when she heard her mother's voice. "Mummy?" she whispered. Jane rushed to her side and took her hand. "I'm here, darling." "You're safe now." Rose blinked, looking past her mother to the two figures standing by the door. Her face brightened slightly. "You came," she said weakly. Catherine smiled and came closer. "Of course we came." "You gave us quite a scare. I wanted to give you my flowers," Rose murmured. Catherine spotted the little bouquet on the table beside the bed, slightly crushed, but still bright. She picked it up gently. "And you did," she said. "They're lovely, thank you." William moved closer, his voice calm and kind. "You were very brave, Rose," he said. "Next time, promise me you'll let your mum stay beside you, all right?" Rose nodded. "I promise." Jane managed a small smile through her tears. "She's been talking about you both for weeks," she said softly. Catherine turned to her. "She's a sweet girl," she said warmly. "You must be very proud." Dr. Clark stepped forward again. "We'll monitor her for the night and likely release her tomorrow morning. She just needs rest." William nodded. "Thank you, Doctor. Please make sure all her care and expenses are covered. Every test, every medication." Dr. Clark hesitated. "Sir, that's not necessary." William stopped him with a calm gesture. "It is." Jane looked startled. "Oh, Your Highness, you don't have to—" Catherine interrupted gently. "It's already arranged. You've been through enough today. Please just focus on Rose." Jane's lips trembled. "I don't know how to thank you." William smiled faintly. "You don't have to." A nurse entered quietly to adjust Rose's blanket. Catherine bent down beside the bed, brushing a strand of hair from the little girl's face. "Rest now," she said softly. "We'll see you again soon." Rose's eyes were already closing. "Can I bring more flowers next time?" she murmured. Catherine smiled. "Only if you promise to walk, not run." That made Rose giggle sleepily before she drifted off. The nurse dimmed the lights and the group stepped out of the room. In the hallway, Dr. Clark said, "We'll take good care of her." Catherine nodded. "I know you will." "Thank you." When they stepped outside, the evening had deepened. The press was still gathered behind the police line, flashes flickering in the distance. The couple didn't speak to reporters. They simply gave a brief nod and got into their car. As they drove away, the hospital lights glowed faintly behind them. Catherine looked out the window. "She's so small," she said quietly, "and she just wanted to give me flowers." William reached over, and took her hand. And she did. She'll remember that, not the fall. Neither spoke again for the rest of the drive back to Windsor. The road was quiet, the night still. Inside the car, the only sound was the steady hum of the engine, and the quiet understanding between them that this day would stay with them for a long time. And this is where it gets much better. Stay with us. By the next morning, every major news outlet in Britain had taken up the story. The Guardian led with the headline that read, "Windsor Walkabout Turns Emotional. Child Injured as Royals Rush to Hospital." The Daily Mail followed with, "William and Catherine's first outing as future king and queen ends in shock and compassion." Even international networks, like CNN and Sky News, carried the footage. Short clips from the walkabout were everywhere, showing the moment the crowd surged, the ambulance racing away, and the royal car following behind, looping across television screens all day. On social media, the event dominated conversation. X, which was formerly Twitter and Instagram, were flooded with videos and posts tagged #WindsorWalkabout, #Princess Catherine, and #RoseAtWindsor. Some users praised the couple for their quick response, while others questioned how the event had been managed. "This shouldn't have happened," one comment on X read. "Security should have been tighter. The king would never have allowed such chaos." Another user replied, "They showed real heart. Following that ambulance wasn't protocol. It was human. That's what the monarchy needs." The debate grew quickly. Some royal watchers argued that William and Catherine should have continued greeting the public to avoid panic, while others said leaving with the ambulance was exactly the right thing to do. By afternoon, the discussion had spread beyond the incident itself. Commentators began drawing wider comparisons between William's modern approach and the traditional style of past monarchs. A former royal correspondent told BBC Radio 4, "It was a moment that revealed the difference between duty as performance and duty as care." Even public figures weighed in. Television hosts, political leaders, and celebrities reposted the clips, adding their thoughts. One popular post on Instagram read, "They didn't wave from the car. They followed an ambulance. That's not weakness. That's leadership." But not all were supportive. A smaller group online claimed the couple's actions disrupted a carefully planned event and drew unnecessary attention. They should have stayed, reassured the public, and addressed the situation later. One critical post read, "The split in opinion was clear. Empathy versus protocol. At Clarence House, aides were monitoring the reaction closely. Inside royal circles, there was concern that speculation could overshadow the real issue, which was Rose Bennett's recovery. Princess Anne, who had watched the news from Sandringham, reportedly told a close staff member, 'They did what was right.' You don't plan kindness, you act on it." Still, senior palace advisors knew that public perception needed to be balanced. Later that afternoon, Kensington Palace issued an official statement from Prince William. "Yesterday's events at Windsor were deeply unfortunate. Our thoughts remain with Rose Bennett and her family, and we are grateful to the emergency teams and medical staff for their care and professionalism. We wish Rose a swift and full recovery." While the walkabout did not go as planned, Catherine and I believe moments like this remind us of what truly matters: the safety, dignity, and well-being of every person we meet. We are humbled by the kindness and concern shown by so many and remain committed to serving with compassion and care. The message was brief, sincere, and personal, exactly what the public had come to expect from the couple. Within an hour, the statement was reposted on the official royal family's social media accounts. It was shared over 1 million times and quickly became one of the most liked posts ever made by the royal household. Comments poured in beneath it. "Grace under pressure," one wrote. Another simply said, This is what a modern monarchy looks like." By evening, most headlines had softened. The focus had shifted from criticism to compassion. Reporters outside Frimley Park Hospital noted that Rose's condition was improving and that the royal couple had checked in once again that afternoon. The public mood turned hopeful. Many people who had been critical the day before now praised the couple's handling of the situation. By evening, William called Frimley Park Hospital to check on Rose's condition. The line was answered by Dr. Stephen Clark, the same doctor who had treated her the day before. "Good evening, doctor," William said. "It's William." "I just wanted to see how Rose Bennett is doing and whether she's been discharged yet." Dr. Clark's voice was calm but cheerful. "Good evening, Your Royal Highness. Rose is doing very well. She's awake, talking, and eating a little. But we'll be keeping her overnight for one last round of observation. If all goes well, she'll be discharged tomorrow morning." William smiled slightly. "That's good news, Doctor." "Thank you. Please tell her we're thinking of her, and that Catherine and I will see her soon." "Of course, sir," Dr. Clark replied. "It will mean a lot to her." When William ended the call, Catherine looked up from her chair. "She's still there?" "Yes," he said, "but she'll be home tomorrow." "I think we should go," Catherine nodded. Then that's settled. The next morning, as the first light touched Windsor, the royal car left quietly for Frimley Park. There was no media announcement, no official escort, just William, Catherine, and their protection team. When they arrived, the hospital staff were taken by surprise. Patients in the corridor whispered as the couple walked through the hall, smiling softly and greeting nurses by name. Jane Bennett, sitting by her daughter's bed, looked up in disbelief as the door opened. "Oh, Your Highnesses," she said, standing quickly. "We didn't expect—" "You've had enough surprises this week," William said gently. "We thought we'd make this one a good one." Catherine walked over to the bed where Rose sat, her arm wrapped in a light cast. The little girl's eyes widened, and she smiled shyly. "Hello again, Rose," Catherine said warmly. "You gave us quite a scare." Rose nodded. "Mummy says I ran too fast." Catherine laughed softly. "Mummies are usually right." The room lightened with quiet laughter. Nurses peeked in from the hallway, smiling at the sight. William spoke with Dr. Clark for a few minutes, confirming that the hospital had everything it needed. He again offered to cover any additional costs, and the doctor assured him all was well. When discharge papers were finally signed, William and Catherine stayed to help gather Rose's things: a small blanket, a teddy bear, and a bouquet of flowers someone had sent. As they walked out together, cameras waiting outside caught the moment. Catherine carrying Rose gently in her arms, William walking beside them, Jane following close behind. It was a simple image, but one that spread around the world within hours. Across television networks and online feeds, the picture became a symbol, not of royalty on display, but of compassion in motion. 3 days later, the news reached King Charles III at Sandringham House, where he had just finished a round of therapy. Princess Anne entered his study, carrying the morning papers. "They've done well," she said, placing one before him. The headline read, "William and Catherine leave hospital with a child. They comforted." Charles adjusted his glasses and studied the photograph. Catherine's expression was calm. William's proud but humble. He nodded slowly. "They did what was right," he said. "In all my years, I've never seen such instinct. Not for ceremony, but for people." He looked toward Anne with a faint smile. "I've made the right choice." "They'll do well, better than any of us could have hoped," Anne smiled back. "They already are." And so what began as a day of celebration and turned briefly to fear ended with a message that reached far beyond Windsor. The first outing of the future king and queen might not have gone as planned, but it revealed something deeper than tradition or title. It showed the world the kind of leaders they were becoming, people who placed humanity above ceremony, care above appearance, and service above the crown. What do you think about Catherine and William's first outing as king and queen? Were they right to leave the crowd and follow the ambulance, or should they have stayed and continued the event? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.